Hello and welcome. We Another episode of CRT Sound System, and it's episode 52, and we're talking about No More Heroes. I'm here with Reese as always. Reese, how are you?
I'm incredible. I'm so cranked. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And we've actually got two guests this time, for the
What the
first time
fuck?
ever.
That's allowed?
Yeah, well, I said we'd fucking try it out. So we've got a returning guest Skeleton from the Anarchy Reigns episode. And they've brought their friend Karin. Skeleton and Karin, introduce yourselves.
Camera zooms in, chair turns around, smiles. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I'm Skeleton. I run a website called Deep Hell. Uh, yeah, I was here for Anarchy Reigns. That's right. It feels like it was so long ago. And I've actually now met you, right, Tom, in Ireland.
Yeah, we had a brief coffee and a walk around Cork City while you were here back in the summer,
We
Oh,
or
did
that's
meet.
earlier in the
awesome.
summer.
We did meet in a graveyard that I was actively climbing out of at the time. Um, deephell.com. That's all I got.
Yeah. Karin, how are you?
I'm Kieran Melody. What's up? Any pronouns? I do a lot of different things. Since I've abandoned Twitter, almost none of them are online anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Respect.
I do poetry, photography, tabletop design, and essay writing. Skateboarding, getting into that now. A lot of things really. Coming soon, I'm gonna have my first kind of like non self-published tabletop game coming out called The Portal Tomb.
Awesome.
Um,
Hell yeah.
which will be cool to have a book with my name on it, even though I am broke.
Whenever that comes out, definitely we'll have to do a bit of promotion on that for sure.
Hell yeah.
You
Thousand
can
percent.
also find Karen Melody on deephell.com.
Yeah,
That is true. I am also on default.com. I should finish that thing I'm writing right now.
yeah. Go to deephell.com. It's a good website with a lot of really good, interesting articles.
Absolutely. And you two are the greatest, by judging by vibes metrics, the greatest No More Heroes boosters of all time. Is this correct?
Absolutely.
I would absolutely say so.
I genuinely don't think I would, as someone who famously hates video games, I don't think I would be who I am without No More Heroes.
I respect that. I think there's like, yeah. I suppose with that, it's probably not a bad idea to just do a little quick explainer of what No More Heroes is. Because yeah, I think it's got a very unique vibe to it, and yeah, there's nothing quite like it. So, you do you want to sort of do the quick explainer, so Karen?
I think the only way I could like explain No More Heroes is my first memory of like how I heard about it.
Hmm.
Which was like my dad weirdly because he was like keeping up on like just general news stuff and he knew I was interested in video games and was just kind of like, oh, there's this like video game where like this like uh nerd gamer character just like buys a katana and starts like killing a ton of people or whatever. And it was I think he was like trying to like paint it as like a kind of like messed up thing in some capacity. But it was one of those things that like immediately like piqued my curiosity about it.
Hmm.
Because like you think like maybe it's gonna be like a Grand Theft Auto kind of thing because it's definitely playing off of that, but it's not that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, what it winds up being is like a really solid like arcade like style kind of like action game
Hmm.
with a slurry of other elements that really make it hard to pin down about Travis Touchdown, who famously buys a lightsaber off eBay and becomes an assassin. And has to kill
Yeah.
the top ranking assassins to be the best guy.
Yeah, that's I suppose the basis of it, but I think in sort of execution, because it's like the fact that it's on the Wii is sort of is significant,
Yeah.
and we actually discussed it with Skeleton on on their previous episode, uh, with Mad World, like just the fact that there were these sort of slightly more mature games, and slightly, you know, the Wii had a reputation for being casual games for babies, and seeing these sort of games coming out for the system, was definitely sort of part of the appeal to of these initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like it's a very weird sort of the whole universe of No More Heroes is very sort of odd, and very Goichi Suda, like that I think most people this is probably the first sort of experience they had with Suda 51.
Yeah, I think absolutely for me. Like I remember hearing about how weird no Killer 7 was a game that you heard people talk about like, oh man, this game's really weird, but it was like hard to actually
Yeah.
get a chance to play, I think, especially at that time for me.
Yeah, that was
But
my
with
relationship with it too.
yeah, but with this coming out, it really just had that kind of like weight or magnetism to it that he just kind of like carries with the way that he engages with media, I think.
Yeah, and it's really has like a lot of all of his sort of his little favorite things, like, you know, he loves professional wrestling, he loves anime, you know, all that shit, and like it's just it's a lot of a bunch of his influences and stuff, just sort of stuffed into one game in a really fun way.
Hmm.
And
And
I
as I say, it's sort of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Reese.
Oh, and I think too. I mean, as somebody who is not very familiar with Suda, from having actually even played any of his games except some of Killer 7, No More Heroes is the one that I think is most arresting to just like see it on the screen. Like I feel
Mm,
like the other games are a little bit more inscrutable, and No More Heroes can certainly be weird, and you have no idea what's happening, but it's just very arresting because there's just so many little style touches, and the going with the like the music, it just like really grips you. So even as somebody who has not played No More Heroes, like I've seen several let's plays and stuff, and I'm just always it's like, oh, that's one I got to get to. And so I don't know. You know, it's I'm a bit of the poser here, but still, you know, it seems from what I have seen, it seems quite unique, even among Suda stuff for me.
mm.
Uh, I'm gonna go real highbrow here and say I think No More Heroes is a game that, like, if you play it at probably 16, in your 20s, in your 30s, and in your 40s, you could probably have a different relationship with it each time.
Mhm.
It's Travis kind of owns as a protagonist that way because you can kind of project any type of loser you'd like onto him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think, like, for myself, I definitely saw myself in him when I played it on the Wii version. But when I played it more recently with the Switch version, then I was like, "Oh, this is a very different person to me," and
Yeah.
clearly a very different commentary on sort of otaku culture than I sort of read it as when I was in my 20s, for sure.
Yeah, forum post is Travis touchdown a feminist closed after 200,000 posts. Uh, that's kind of what I get from it anyways.
There's definitely some weird sexual politics in this game as well. Yeah, that's probably not worth going too deeply into.
Oh, sure.
But I think we'll actually jump into the first block of tracks, and we can come back then and maybe talk a little bit more about Jun Fukuda and Masafumi Takada, who are like the composers for this game. Primarily, Masafumi Takada, I think, is somebody that I've wanted to talk about on the podcast for a long, long time.
Mhm.
Um, Has like a bunch of my favorite soundtracks. So I think we'll listen to a bit of music. We'll come back and talk about Masafumi Takada. So I have 3 tracks to start off with. First track is Cashmere Cannonball. Then I have Blaster Nation, and I have Oxygen Graffiti. I think we just I want to immediately jump in here to talk about Masafumi Takada because I think for me he's like probably in like my personal top 5 video game composers. Um, like just the list of fucking games that he's worked on that I absolutely fucking love the soundtracks for. Um, Notwithstanding just the Danganronpa games, which have incredible soundtracks, but just like um, Contact, Earth Defense Force, Killer 7, this Vanquish, fucking Robot Alchemic Drive. There's a, I think he did, the Samurai Champloo, the PS2 game for with Samurai Champloo. Like, just so many fucking games that I love the soundtracks for, and he's everywhere in them.
Samurai Champloo on the PS2 has been on my list for years. I need to get to it.
Mhm.
I've never played the game itself, but that's such a good soundtrack.
Mhm.
um, yeah, and like he doesn't seem to be like somebody who ever worked for any specific companies, but like did a lot of stuff for Capcom, and then ended up going on to do a lot of stuff for Suda51, Grasshopper Manufacturer in general, and as well as that as like Platinum as quite a few of their games as well.
Mhm.
And I think then he sort of went on to start his own company sort of as a freelancer. Um, because the thing that had really had a fun time with the last Nintendo Direct, when they announced that game that is by the Danganronpa guy, and everybody in the group chat that I was in at the time was freaking out about the Danganronpa stuff, and I was just like, I immediately heard the music, and I was like, oh shit, they've got Takada on the soundtrack. Like, it's just he's got such a recognizable style to me at this stage.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like it's just such a good composer.
Which
Go
is
ahead.
also like incredible because Takada's musical style goes all over the place. He's got like
Yeah,
grunge influences. He's got like this old kind of LA Guns style punk rock influence. You can tell he also probably at one point listened to like a lot of Christian Death and like
But there's
his
also like,
musical style's all over.
but you also have like lounge music and like techno and like
The
this
bongo solo in
in
um
Cashmere Cannonball towards the end. Yeah, yeah.
it
yeah.
I mean he's been working with Suda 51 basically since the beginning. Um uh and just how much of like his music like sums up the ethos of the game in each individual track is so fascinating.
I mean, I have much less experience with his games. Although looking over his list, I was absolutely fucking pogging that he did Evil Within. That
Oh yeah, he
game,
did do that as well. Yeah, shit.
that game, it's not like this where it's like, I'm gonna put
Yeah,
it
the
on and
music in that
bang.
game isn't as in your face.
But I think that is that game has an immense horror soundtrack, so that
Mm,
he's able to just zero in on that, and also just like within the Danganronpa series, which was the only how I mainly know him. I feel like he's able to have such an incredible range throughout the series and in each game. Like, the it kind of matches the vibes, and as things sort of break down and gets weird, he gets weird with it in a way that makes it actually work. It would probably not work otherwise. And even like an absolute dog shit game like Ultra Despair Girls, the fact that he did the music to it like raised the tone so much. It's incredible. I think I before this podcast I was kind of just like, yeah, Danganronpa is good, uh is great. No More Heroes is great, but just looking at the breadth of his work, I'm
Mhm.
definitely gonna have to listen to a ton of soundtracks, and then probably uh likely to become one of my faves. Top
yeah,
5 faves.
yeah.
No
And
More Heroes. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No More
Absolutely.
Heroes has infiltrated my life enough that like Blaster Nation is the second song we listen to, and it's the song you listen to when you're in Travis's apartment, like trying out different outfits. and
Mm,
it is one of the best songs for getting ready in the entire world. You can just play it
yeah.
on a loop for hours while you're like trying to get ready to go out
Playing with your
somewhere.
cat and looking at weird anime
Yeah,
figures.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because a couple of the songs that we listen to are very much like Travis's like slice of life, his like daily life songs, right? Like
Hmm.
that's his like putting on outfit song. What was Oxygen Graffiti was the just like doing chores song, right? Those are both things that are like they're very mundane activities, but the music gives them such this like sense of gravitas, you know? Like Blaster Nation it feels like underground, you know? Like it is this sound that makes you feel like you are just like navigating this unseen world. But you know, he's just picking out his outfit for the day, but that's the outfit you're also going to just go kill people in, you know?
Yeah.
it also is like there's such this interesting point in the game. You really do spend a lot of time in the game looking at Travis in the mirror and sort of
Mm.
rotating him around and putting on like the yellow jacket and the pink shirt, or putting on his ridiculous tiger stripe jeans that I wish I owned a pair of. You're doing like you spend a lot of time in the game basically. Travis is essentially like as the type of loser he could be. He's like a TikTok like outfit guy.
Yeah.
Especially with that music. It's like such a weird encapsulation of internet culture that wasn't actually there at the time.
Mm. Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's true actually. And it's interesting you mentioned just the sort of the mundanity aspect of it, Karen, because yeah, it's one of the really interesting things about this game is how it sort of contrasts the mundane stuff that you're like, you know, you're off doing odd jobs for people around town, um, and you know, and say you're hanging out at home, you're taking a shit, uh, you know, you're looking at your t-shirt collection, you're doing all that kind of stuff, and then you go outside and you just start murdering people by the scores. Like just that
Yeah.
contrast of the mundane and the fantastic
I
is a really interesting part of the game.
Yeah, I was watching a friend play one of the Yakuza games, which I'm not very familiar with. But one of the
Mm,
things I was struck by when watching that was how much stuff there is to do in that like city that you're playing in, or for whatever game, because each game usually has a lot of different activities that you can do, which
hmm.
usually have their own like kind of smaller storylines that build out this kind of sense of like urban life, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was watching that and I was like thinking like, oh, what would that be like in America? And I was like, there'd be fucking nothing. It would be no more heroes.
That's true,
That's
yeah.
I think that's accurate. And I think too what's so interesting about it is, you spend so much time with Travis, but you don't really get a sense of his inner life except through the music. And sure he delivers dialogue but
Mm,
that so much of that is him being, a young guy just trying to front and clearly has not thought out everything about his life and what he thinks about women, etc. And you only get these peaks from like his t-shirt collection, his porn debt collection, voicemails. Like you're just like he has at least two different porns he rents that has to do with coffee. And so you're just like, for some reason that is psychosexual to Travis. You're just like, okay, this is information. And it's really good, and I feel stuff like Oxygen Graffiti while Travis is um filling gas tanks or mowing the
collecting
lawn.
coconuts or fucking
Exactly. It's just clearly just like Travis is a million miles away, just doing these jobs so he can get back to killing people. It's just like Travis is on another planet, and it's great. That's why we
It's
love him.
also like so interesting because Travis's vision of himself is as such a like cool outsider, and from his behavior you don't get that, but we get earwigged into the same like you can imagine what Travis is listening to when he's doing chores,
Mhm.
yeah.
and if this is what Travis is listening to while he does chores, this guy has really fucking good music taste.
Absolutely. Oh. Speaking again of the music, actually, I do. I feel like it would also be remiss of me not to talk about Jun Fukuda, who is sort of seems to be Masafumi Takada's sort of like right hand guy. Like they work on a lot of soundtracks together. I don't know what their sort of working relationship is, or sort of how they split the work or anything. Um, like on certain games, they're credited together for every track on this one. There's only a couple of tracks that Jun Fukuda is credited on. And then say on No More Heroes 2, it's primarily Jun Fukuda with a couple of tracks by Masafumi Takada. So he's as important, I think, to the sound of this game as anything else. Um, but probably doesn't get the name recognition that Masafumi Takada does, unfortunately. But yeah, it's definitely worth shouting out, especially as the first track here. From the next block we have is one that he composed or co-composed with Takada. So yeah, I think we'll jump into that next block of tracks anyway. So the first track I have, as I mentioned, composed by Masafumi Takada and Jun Fukuda, is 10 Tons of Titanium. Then just Takada on his own for the next two tracks is Stop Hanging DJs and Samurai Summer. I really want to go back to something you said while we were in the break there about how these tracks were possibly named by Tim Rogers. I want to know where that came from.
I have seen that. I've seen that comment pop up on a couple different forums. I've seen it on
Okay.
Reddit, and I've seen it in YouTube comments on the OST.
Fascinating. Okay, because I fully believe it. I just was, I was curious where that actually came from. Yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit, if true.
What the question that truly compelled me during the break is there some element of Travis Touchdown that is based on Tim Rogers? And to me the answer is yes. Travis Touchdown is not Tim Rogers, clearly. I think
Mm.
there's too much other stuff there, but I can see sort of like the I could see Suda looking at Tim Rogers and just being like, "That's somebody who really gives a shit about his jacket." What if that was also Travis Touchdown? And sort of like, I could see Tim Rogers just sitting in his apartment, just looking at his shirts for 4 hours, uh, while this kind of music played. I would say that Travis Touchdown is 35% Tim Rogers. The vibes, less so the character himself, but I don't know. That is I'm gonna tell people that's true, like it's been said somewhere.
It it's kind of like him if you like were trying to think of him and kept getting confused for the movie Six String Samurai.
Mm.
Yeah.
I really hope there's some Six String Samurai in the DNA of No More Heroes, because that would make the second video game that has that, and it makes so much sense.
If you can find it too, there's a really good interview with Suda51 that Tim does, where Suda51 just takes the entire interview to make fun of Tim.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because like anytime you invoke the man's name, there's gonna be like also the haters out there. So that's a little. Let me throw a bone to the haters.
Um, wonderful. I mean, I feel like if Travis Touchdown kept looking directly at the camera and told a story from when he was 8 years old about an Arby's order, it would 100% be Tim Rogers.
That's No More Heroes 3, baby.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll get there then.
Well, for full circle, I do want to point out something you said too, Karin, while we were listening to the song that plays during the Destroy Man boss fight. Like, it's very much a song that has like no resolution.
Which song's that one? That's Stop Hanging DJs.
Yeah, Stop Hanging DJs, which it's very interesting because like the Destroy Man boss fight kind of resolves in an odd way.
Well, it's not that it has not only just has no resolution. It's well, because the song does have this resolution, but what it has before that is a lot of weird buildup that goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of like it sounds like a digital frog is choking for most of the track. And then you build up to the end, and all of that sound falls away to this like heavenly arraignment. That's just there. This brief moment of bliss before it just suddenly ends.
Yeah.
It's kind of an oral version of that guy telling Travis to turn around and then almost shooting him with a missile or whatever. Um, it's the whole song is a trick on Travis almost in the same way it seems like the boss fight is, or it's kind of portrayed.
Yeah.
What-
Well, that's the thing that's really weird about No More Heroes boss fights, because I was like thinking about this because I was like trying to like refresh my memories before we recorded, and um each boss fight, like you're introduced to the game through like a really cool and stylish boss fight with death metal, I think his name was. And it gets you hyped. It kind of makes you wonder what the rest of the game is going to be like. And then each boss has like a mechanic or way of attacking that's almost like complete bullshit. Like
Yeah.
something that just knocks you the fuck down, something that you're not prepared for, that does not match the way the game has played previously. Um, and it's something that is in the moment really frustrating, like Dr. Peace's like gun just fucking shooting you
Mhm.
with like nearly unblockable bullets, you know, or Holly's minefield that
Yeah.
you have to mash your way out of. Like I think when I played that, I couldn't even figure out how to get out of the pitfalls for a while. Um, and despite these frustrations, not only continue, they just keep adding up.
There's also like there's also the fact in the game too where it's like two bosses kind of get killed because they like are clumsy or Travis does something very clumsy.
But
Yeah.
despite it all, you love the game anyway. You remember those fights fondly in the end. Like it's
Mhm.
really the trick that the game is playing on you uh is from the beginning, and it ends when the game ends. And the music kind of follows that in a weird way, and I think Stop Hanging DJs is just really indicative of that.
Mm. I think it's like something Reese mentioned or said in one of the previous breaks is like, this is a game that makes fun of you for taking video games seriously.
It
You know,
it is, but it's the thing that's really fascinating is that it's doing that while it's taking itself equally as seriously. Um,
absolutely.
Yeah.
each fight is like this cone where Travis Touchdown is contemplating the nature of violence and power.
Yeah.
Um, it's very touching and deep, but also ridiculous. And part of engaging with that is realizing that you have to laugh, you have to release yourself from it, or else it
Yeah.
rips your fucking heart. It's really good.
Yeah, it's the way the game sort of handles tone is really good like that,
Mhm.
because it's constantly silly, but yeah, it never undermines itself with that silliness either.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of parts too where you get like all of those vibes come together and the game will do a scene that goes in the complete direction than opposite direction than you were expecting. Like the fight
Mm.
with Shinobu or the way Holly Summers dies,
Yeah,
especially with like what they tell you about Travis's character that are really interesting, like
Mhm.
Holly Summers killing herself and then Travis basically being like, I'm in love with your spirit because he felt like he dishonored her by not killing her in the end of the fight.
yeah, yeah. And it is quite a like it's quite an emotional scene somehow, despite yeah,
That death is perfectly encapsulated because it is like a comedy where it's making fun of Travis, and since we are the stand-in for Travis making fun of us, um
and Tim
and
Rogers.
and Tim Rogers, really the whole game's about making fun of Tim Rogers. uh um and you know, the way she kills herself is, you know, she just puts a grenade in her own mouth, and that is so absurd in such, but at the same time it's like so horrible for Travis to witness this,
Mm.
but also like he's not traumatized or horrified necessarily by that. It's just more like I needed to do that.
Yeah,
It's such a weird mix of
it's
emotions from him, and at the end, as part of this serious portrayal as character, there's also a punchline where Travis is the butt of the joke.
mhm. It's also like a very interesting like Travis's relationship with women thing where
Yeah.
Holly says Travis dishonored her and then makes him watch her die in the worst way possible and Travis responds by telling her he loves her.
hmm
Yeah, is the guy does not have a healthy relationship with women.
And there's like a kind of jokey subtext to where, you know, Travis wants to fuck Sylvia, I think is her name.
Yeah,
And it seems like after that he's sort of like a bit more nuanced about that, where before in the scene he is just like, "Awooga, I'm gonna touch a woman on the beach."
Well, it's also
Uh,
like there's a funny sexual politic to No More Heroes where Travis wants nothing more than to have a girlfriend, and all of the women he meets want to kill him.
yeah.
Travis like goes on this journey from being someone who wants these very normal kind of cultural things. He wants wealth, he wants women, he wants power. He's also removed from these things by being a fucking loser. Um, but also kind of in this culture where these are also the only things that really seem to matter in a lot of ways. Like the whole fight with death metal is him being confronted with all someone who has all of those things and realizing that they would trap him to have those things, yet to still continue chasing after them. That's kind of what I mean by these cones is that there is this kind of emotional, circular emotional logic in kind of each fight that builds upon each other. And part of it is that by the end of the game, Travis's motives are no longer his own. He he even I think like the last one of the last areas is like the forest of delusion or fantasy or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And when he emerges from that, he emerges into this final boss fight that gives him the backstory he has so desperately sought. It gives him he transforms into that genuine um protagonist by giving all of himself to this delusion, and that interplay between delusion and reality kind of um is placed at the core of like what video games culture is fundamentally as Suda51 sees it. It's very fascinating.
Absolutely. I think that's honestly a very interesting, as somebody who's only been able to watch Let's Plays and stuff and hasn't internalized stuff as much. That really kind of like gives me a lot to think about and chew on with the last fight, because the last fight is fucking wild.
Yeah, yeah.
And just to watch it and just like
Yeah.
there's some great bits, and I guess I won't outright spoil it, but it's, the fourth wall breaking. There's so much like just descending into the surrealism and absurdity at that point that the game has always embraced, um but has just like cranks it up to the final level for the final boss fight, and then you sort of like have the credits and the epilogue to kind of like take you home.
Yeah, there's that like kind of bonus fight at the end, but the kind of like main kind of like ending fight uh you're literally surrounded by this Ouroboros that is consuming itself and getting tighter and tighter as the fight goes on. And the game is kind of feels like this process of making you realize that you're already in that Ouroboros.
Absolutely, and just like fighting the boss is, it seems like it's, I don't know how to watch it anyways. The she does so much dodging, and it seems like it's a very particular long fight where you have to, you're worn down just as much as you're wearing her down, and it's kind of like a very, it's a very interesting kinesthetic experience. It
Mhm.
seems like, anyways.
And
It's a
like
good fight.
in the Hollies fight too, it's kind of like this midway hump in the game where a character kills themselves to force Travis to keep going.
One thing I wanted to say about the songs we listened to, by the way, was I think it was 10 Tons of Titanium.
Oh, the
Mhm.
we have Eye of the Tiger at home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah. The thing that's really fascinating about that's a detail that I never would have caught about that. I think unless I like listened to it that way, was that it starts has a like Eye of the Tiger sound, and then it transforms into something like low and funky, like very slowly over time. By the time it's transformed, you're not really aware of it. but then
Mhm.
it brings in the No More Heroes theme
Yeah.
that is kind of like now keyed in to be a part of the song. But by the end of the song, like the No More Heroes theme and like the Eye of the Tiger theme are like competing for like
Yeah.
your ear space, and that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a very well put together track. I think I mentioned it sort of has that sound of like a thrash metal song, but then just has squelchy synths in it for like
Hmm.
there's a lot of contrasting sounds going on in that track, which is yeah, it's really really interesting and really well put together. But yeah, I think it's probably time to jump on to the next block of tracks.
Let's do it.
Mhm.
So
Let's do it.
yeah, so the first track I have here is K-ENT. Then Heart in Your Hand, and then another track with Masafumi Takada and Jun Fukuda is Pleather for Breakfast. Thinking on it now, I get a feel. I wonder if the character Bad Girl, who that last track was the boss theme for, is what they based Lollipop Chainsaw on later. It feels like a very similar character. But that song absolutely fucking rules. Like
That song, I think, one of the best songs on the entire OSC.
yeah.
Got to agree.
That
You
girl also
know, and
rules as a character.
Yeah.
it is the whispery the way the lyrics are being whispered there is so fucking evocative, especially just listening to it by itself right now. So, you know, it brought like goosebumps. You know, maybe not actual goosebumps, but the goosebump feeling.
The song title is Pleather for Breakfast. The lyrics could be read as being about BDSM consensual relationships. And one of the missions in the game reveals that Bad Girl is killing clones. So she's not hurting innocent people. She's paying to have lives created just so she can destroy them.
There's also a thing that's really interesting about her theme is it comes in really like clubby and fun. The whisper even like makes it sound like pop music, but around the halfway
Mm.
point of that song, it transforms, and these elements it adds to it feel like horror cues. Like
Mm.
you get this like like the this like heavenly kind of sound you hear in the background, like with the pop music turns for the one part of this one incredibly long length of song turns into this like unending scream, and then you get these like murder strings like you'd hear in like Psycho, like playing like really softly
Yeah.
between them, and it starts feeling like you're trapped in the club.
Absolutely. It's it's a very interesting fight to me too, just from you know, the metaphor of BDSM, because sh- she is Michael Myers essentially. Like Travis has delivered her a killing blow, but she does not relent until he submits. You know, and then the moment that he submits, um, you know, she dies on top of him, and it's just like it's such an interesting. I don't know. It's just like, you know, especially considering the time, and you know, this is a during Wii game, that it's able to play with this stuff, and sure, it's pretty lurid stuff, but it's that you know, combined with the song is just really interesting. You know, it's the No More Heroes has so much interesting there's such an interesting undercurrent for how outrageous it is, and I think it's very easy. I imagine that I have not seen much discourse in No More Heroes, but I imagine this goes over some people's heads.
You couldn't make No More Heroes today.
No,
You
no.
shouldn't make No More Heroes today.
They're
The
too busy
world's
making
gone.
Blazing Saddles.
The world's
They
gone
don't
too
have the
woke.
budget.
Um, I made the suggestion for K Entertainment. It's one of my favorite songs in the game, and I can't. It's just. It's like a song you want to do your evil taxes to.
It's like Wii Shop music for assassins.
Yeah, there's also this like, yeah, the whole presentation of the area you go into to get your assassin contracts is so surreal and sanitized. And then you have like the character model of the woman who gives you the missions is the same color as all of the textures in the background.
Like
Yeah.
you're very briefly stepping into the world of Killer 7 to get jobs.
Uh-huh. And there's this strange like disconnect. Like you leave Santa Destroy to go in somewhere, the loading screen plays, the music starts on the loading screen. The colors from the loading screen are also some of the colors of the texture. It's like, did Travis actually enter a real place? Is this part of like the self-delusion of Santa Destroy that this place doesn't even exist?
I
mean,
the there are a lot weirder details that could play into that come up in like later like No More Heroes games, um, that I think just broadly draw into question um Suda 51's sense of world building, which is way more like mythopoetic than it is like concrete and real places.
Yeah, it's very subtractive rather than like yeah. But I do think it's interesting actually because just the way you mentioned that like part of the mundanity of it is that like it's essentially the same thing. You go through the same process when you're like selecting an odd job to do to make money between killing people and going into K entertainment and like selecting the next person you're going to kill. Like just the fact that those two are sort of presentationally very similar is a really interesting aspect of how this game sort of treats the concept of chores.
There's also this like interesting, weird Suda 51 building into an out of reality thing that I like in the
Mm,
game. Because the voice manager, the woman who says the line you leave, which is like I think like have an Uber day or like have meet your Uber self or something, is
mm.
the voice of the woman who is the PR manager for No More Heroes.
Okay, that's interesting.
And K Entertainment in the game is depicted as a corrupt advertising agency.
Yeah,
K has to stand for kill, right? Like kill entertainment.
Yes.
yeah, I'd imagine so. Yeah.
The idea that could stand for kill entertainment is interesting because that could be either like descriptive or declarative.
Mm-hmm. You
Yeah.
mostly are trying to keep Pizza Butt out of Santa Destroy.
Pizza Butt is such a funny, yeah. Yeah, and I like when you go to the job center and the guy just starts spouting weird Marxist stuff, just about how like everybody's a worker and they need survival and all that. Like it's just a very funny little bit when he's just like go collect coconuts for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like that there's yeah, it's a very weird disconnect between between what the guy talks about when you go up to him and what the actual jobs are then.
I was just gonna make a note too, like heat in your or heart in your hand, heat in your hand, whatever translation you want to go with. That song could go in any fight in the game and it would rule.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts on that one just because it's like really solid. But one thing that's really interesting about it is that there are other smaller instruments in the song that sound like they're coming from like the room next to you. Like they're not coming from this room the song is being played in.
Mm, yeah, it is
Uh
a bit
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, the texture of this song is so good.
Um, it's really interesting how layered the songs are because like the game where you can hone in on different details and get different things out of the game very easily. The music is like that too. Like it's layered in such a way that if you just listen to the pure sound, the context it gives you being built by itself, like when you re-listen to it, you could get a completely different thing out of that if you hone in on different elements of the sound happening.
Yeah, you can play. I can definitely imagine that you can play the version of No More Heroes that reflects your soul and heart. You know, and say that that is such an outrageous one note game at the end of it. I don't think it's one note, but
Mhm.
it's interesting in that way, just because it's able to create such subtlety with such wide, bold strokes,
Mm,
which the
Mhm.
music does as well. I feel like a lot of the music are the way that the instruments combine together. I've Oxygen Graffiti is one of the reasons I like that so much, because it feels like something I that could easily be a mess of instruments that somebody put together in their loop program, and it's just a millimeter off, and it'd just be like really dissonant, and maybe not necessarily bad, but it wouldn't jam the same way. But the song just jams really hard, and it's so weird, and you can take like several different things from it because of that. It's just very interesting. How the music reflects the game that way.
Yeah, each song does something really interesting where uh, the song is like kind of like the game is in dialogue with itself. Each song is in dialogue with itself, and the
Mm,
different instruments really become not only the different instruments but different genres, different influences at play within the song have these ways that they're thematically communicating with each other and building these kind of like emotions and tones into or against each other that kind of follow through this logic that resolves in some way by the end of the song that I think both relates to what the
mm.
song is and what it's trying to reflect.
I think as well with a lot of these, it's notable how much he goes back to the main theme,
Mm-hmm.
um, for a lot of different songs to sort of like try and put that into as many different contexts as possible.
The main theme is really interesting because I only learned this because of Skeleton. Skeleton showed me this video essay series called 11th Heaven Critical Suplex by James Howell. And there's an episode where he talks about the similarities between the main theme for No More Heroes and a Killer 7 track called Rave On.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the main theme really sounds like this portion of that song that is like kind of like twisted and like mocking almost like like
Mm,
the main theme is almost kind of like it's saying like neener neener neener, you know, like it has this high pitch kind of quality to it that is um it sounds low and cool while also sounding sleazy and cheap at the same time in a way that works. And that
yeah.
balance really is the core of the game.
Yeah. In many ways, yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, I think with that we're going to jump into the last block of tracks. So this is a slightly longer one, so I've got 4 tracks for this one. The first track is "The Virgin Child Makes Her Wish Without Feeling Anything," which is a fantastic song title. And then we have "No More, No More Heroes." Then we have "Blueberry Cheesecake Brownie," and lastly, "We Are Finally Cowboys."
And no more heroes is the true ending theme, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I just want to mention, it's not a spoiler, don't worry, but the fake ending to this game has the start of the real ending, and then it just does a George Lucas like circle wipe, and basically with the Star Wars font, and does Star Wars knockoff music. And every time I see it, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's really incredible. Um, it's a great cliffhanger.
Yeah, pretty good. All right, let's go.
You spell the end of the world. I hear the rising phoenix in my dream, and the virgin child made a wish upon a star. That night her mother talks no more. Cape of hope, the end of the dream. A shining fish splashes in a stream, and the virgin child loses her heart and soul. That night her mother's eyes see no more. When the wind blows, a virgin child's gone, sing a song, such a pretty melody never heard before. No more, no
like a typewriter that's being sampled in the background?
Oh wow, I have no idea.
Maybe, yeah.
That's one of those sounds I would not have honed in on if no one said anything.
I just really I love the ending, like way that song comes together.
Mm.
I love that boss fight. I love the line Travis says to, or Henry says to Travis when he says, "Let's go find that exit we call paradise." I love everything about that whole fucking scene.
It's such a cool scene, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it. Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking of just that ending of this scene where he's like, holding Travis at like sword point and just asking like, "So how do you want to end this thing?" And Travis is like,
Mm.
"Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, I have no idea."
Yeah. It's cool though. Like, I mean, it's a really interesting way to end the game, where sort of like a lot of the time it spends so much time sort of holding holding coolness just at bay from Travis touchdown. But you get to the ending and it sort of is like, okay, you can have your little reward. He can have this cool little scene where he actually gets to be cool, and you have that fight with Henry in it. It's just like, yeah.
It
Um,
it's really interesting because it's such a buildup of the like themes of the game because on one hand it's like you fight your way through the ranking assassins, which are kind of what we're shown in the world's really the only thing that matters when it comes to like the strength and power of these characters. And then Henry comes in, he's not even a part of that.
yeah, just completely outside that structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other hints that that structure is both false and meaningless throughout the game.
Yeah.
Including I think the phone call you get where you're directly told it's like a scam.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
And slowly, Travis finding out through the game, all of his entrance money just being given to rich dudes already.
yeah. And but like Henry comes in and he's just this like lost boondock saint. Like
Oh god.
That's
Yeah.
the perfect way to describe him.
That is. Oh my god.
Sorry, we've turned an Irish character into an Irish American.
That's fine.
He
You can
is
have it.
Irish American.
yeah, I think he is Irish American.
Mm-hmm.
So he can be, but he was born in America, grew up in Ireland, so it's got the proper accent. He could rule them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. I love that scene's compelling. I don't have anything more intelligent to add. It's just it just bangs real fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry,
you
Karin.
can go.
I honestly, I don't think I had anything. The brain cell is turned off now.
Sure. I was gonna just say that the song, it just really sounds like two people endlessly circling each other. Before like getting.
We are finally Cowboys.
Yeah, we are finally Cowboys. What a good song name.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Tim.
And just for it to get so like joyous and elevated towards the end as like it sounds.
There's a sound of sort of like inevitability to it.
Yeah.
Like it starts off and it's just constantly going, and when you get to the end, then it's sort of the way it climaxes isn't quite what you expect, but
But
it does sort of it really brings everything to a head.
Yeah, it has this almost like weird, like joyous, religious, like undercurrent that is just like coming out in the end, like through all of this
Mm,
circling and circling and circling, there's this like revelation that is kind of coming through that.
yeah. Yeah, it's got a very sort of JRPG sound to it, I
Mm-hmm.
think, like that. Um, like you could imagine that in the hands of a lesser composer, just having like a load of operatic vocals added to it,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of thing, just to sort of to really drive home the point. Whereas I think they're trying for something a little bit more subtle here, in a game and in a soundtrack that isn't especially subtle, but
I mean, there's a really
I think they go ahead.
I was just there's a really interesting contrast with the No More Heroes track.
Mm,
Because I feel like they're both doing similar things. I don't remember where that track comes in game though.
that's short. I think that's after. In fact, yeah, it's we said no more heroes as the ending track for the
Mm-hmm.
true ending. So it actually comes after We Are Finally Cowboys in the track order.
It is it playing over the credits in that
I
ending
think
or
so.
okay?
Yeah,
It just
yeah, it's like the true credits scene. Yeah.
it's just interesting, especially that that We Are Finally Cowboys resolves into that track specifically, because that track is almost the opposite of the entire soundtrack. Um, because it's like cool, it's building, it's unironic and wailing, it's like just giving in to the action movie of it all. It sounds like a game that you'd hear on like a soundtrack you hear in like an arcade racing game. Like like all this kind of like it's not that it's a layered song, but it's very singular in purpose and focus. Like kind of Skeleton was saying about the like kind of like victory lap. Like it really feels like a continuation of that, to the point that like there's no ending to the song. It just keeps playing and fades out. Um,
Mm,
uh, it really is mysterious as to how the game goes from that like mocking like No More Heroes kind of like mainline theme to resolving into this just fully giving into this guitar wailing.
yeah.
There's a note too about No More Heroes, and if you compare it with Heat in Your Hand or Heart in Your Hand, I'm gonna yeah. It's very interesting how the texture of the themes arrangement changes. Like
Mm,
No More Heroes has I think full drums, and then in Heart in Your Hand, it almost sounds like somebody's using jazz like steel brushes on the drums, and it
yeah.
changes like the texture and almost meaning of the song that way.
Mm,
It
yeah.
removes like that bombasticness that No More Heroes does. Ties into also Takada's jazz background, because before he composed for video games, he went to college for like jazz, music
Oh,
college. And he was a person who didn't actually like video games and got involved in them because he thought he could make the music better.
Oh hell yeah!
he certainly did.
So like thinking of him as this jazz nerd and how like big he is on arrangements across all of his soundtracks is very interesting.
Mm, yeah, that is quite interesting.
I mean, yeah, he really gets to show that
Um,
off with a virgin child too.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of like the funny thing is we mentioned a bunch of genres with the No More Heroes OST, like garage punk and this LA Guns vibe and this house music, but really it's a jazz album. And it's a jazz album composed around its own version of a standard, which is like the theme's composition.
yeah, no, that does sort of track through it. Yeah, absolutely. The Virgin Child is very interesting because I hadn't really paid much attention to it until my most recent playthrough, and I was like, such an incongruous song, but also makes so much sense in the moment because it is like it's one of the few songs that's purely diegetic, isn't it? Because like it's all sung by the boss that you're fighting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yes, it's the Dr. Peace fight, yeah.
Yeah, you're fighting Doctor Peace, yeah, and he's singing it at you while you're
Because it's
um,
part of your it there's like a reason he's doing it, sort of like involving his like daughter, I think.
mhm.
And like Travis is like asking all this stuff about his feed, but he's just giving this really strange song. Um, like if you look at the lyrics for it, it's a really baffling like piece of music. Um,
Yeah.
but it's really interesting because it really makes me think about like how many video games really feel the need to put a like in universe like vocally sung song in them.
Hmm.
And it's almost like there's this like secret link to musical theater that everyone is dancing around and is too embarrassed to admit that's there.
Yeah.
Like we don't want a full musical, but we will have one musical number.
Yeah. That's yeah, it's a really interesting sort of little touch for the game to have that. As I say, especially because it isn't really anywhere else in the game.
You haven't truly lived until you've been up at 5 o'clock in the morning, wasted and blasted out of your mind on mushrooms and LSD, and various disassociatives, and you are singing continuously the song Virgin Child on repeat for several hours until your whole identity fractures.
Terrifying.
I'm definitely gonna do that. Thank you.
That one on the bucket
Um,
list, yeah.
I
Awesome.
also crying at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
That goes without
Well,
saying.
of course. I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it doesn't seem like an activity you would do without crying, to be honest. But yeah, so I suppose before we go, any final thoughts on No More Heroes from everyone?
Yeah, rules.
It bangs.
Yeah.
Go watch 11th Heaven Critical Suplex.
Yeah, I've got the playlist up there now. I'm gonna have a look at that. It seems quite interesting.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tim Rogers.
Oh yeah, Tim's not
Thanks, Tim
supposed to be here.
Rogers. No, I'm Tom.
Yes, yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not to get that confused.
I know who Tim Rogers is. I've known who Tim Rogers is this whole time.
Oh my god! Imagine if you just thought we were talking about me the whole time.
Yeah.
I will start a rumor that Suda51 based Travis touchdown on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your gifts
You're
to
welcome.
jackets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah,
You
no,
were wearing a jacket when I met you.
that's true. Yeah, I have been known to wear a jacket, so you know, I can't beat those allegations.
Mhm.
Yeah, like No More Heroes anyway. It fucking rules. I would say try and play the Wii version if you can. It's the most fun to play, even if it is a bit funny at times, just because it has so many elements of it sort of tied to the Wii remote and nunchuck. That doesn't really translate very well to the recent ports, which are perfectly fine games. Like they're really, if you can't play the Wii version, play those absolutely too. But I do think the Wii version is the more preferable version.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, again, Skeleton and Karin, if you have things you want to plug, I know you mentioned your websites, and Karin, you mentioned you've got a game coming out soon, but if you have any specific links that you'd like to tell people to go to or anything, now's the time to do that.
Yeah, any physical addresses you would like money mailed to, just anything like that.
I mean, I really wish I had something. I'm like almost like I'm on the cusp of just abandoning the internet, so not a lot of places to find me. I guess just like whisper my name to snakes and see what happens.
Absolutely.
And by the
Alright.
portal tomb.
Yes, by the
Is lizards? How about lizards? Can I whisper it to lizards? There's not a lot of snakes around here, but they're lizards.
lizards should be fine. They're less responsive, but I think if you find the right one, you'll be good.
Okay, but
I-
there's no negative.
Yeah.
I have-
Okay.
I have actually been in situations where me and a group of people have mentioned Karen's name 3 times and she's appeared. So
Wow. Sick.
Yeah, that's a good ability to have.
Deep-hell.com.
that's me.
Check out that website. It is they are very powerful video game knowers and should have more eyeballs on their stuff.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, some
I-
really,
I-
really good
I-
video game writing.
I firmly believe that. So yeah, dude, get to it.
Absolutely. Reese, tell us all about what you got going on.
I'm a nightmare on social media, so just check out my other podcasts, which are Video Games Are the Worst Thing on Earth, our leftist political news making fun of the elderly podcast, and Existential Warfare, which is a much more positive podcast about finding good in this bad world, and sometimes I even release episodes.
And they're
Hell
good.
yeah.
Yeah, and as for ourselves, yeah, we can be found on just go look for CRT Sound System on Linktree. We've got a Patreon, patreon.com/CRT Sound System. Come hang out in the Discord if you want to talk about music or whatever with us. Come on the show. Yeah, please come on the show. We're always trying to get
Mhm.
people to come on the show. And just send me a DM, send Reese a DM. If you want to talk about whatever video game that you want to be mentally ill about with us.
Absolutely, and then we will endeavor to give ourselves your mental illness. So it's very therapeutic for you, uh, and we get content. So
Exactly.
that's the deal.
Um,
Yeah, and also just to let you know, there's no real reason to check it out, but we are on irepod.com as one of the national podcasts of Ireland.
Oh, cool.
So I'm excited about that. It's I don't know what it means, but just know that. I think that's everything.
I don't think it's that, like, I think it's just any podcast that's based in Ireland, they've just put it on there.
Yeah,
so,
it's just every podcast in Ireland is one of the official national podcasts of
official
Ireland.
podcasts. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Skeleton, and thank you, Reese.
Thank you.
So last track we have to go out on is Season of the Samurai. It's a long one, so buckle up for that one. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one.
Night.